Now here's Luigi Mangione doing a fist pump, and here's another view. Not showing a lot of remorse there. I'll talk about how this defendant reminds me of Jeffrey Dahmer later in this video, but let me just backtrack. Mangione stalked and killed United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Now, apparently because he was angry at the healthcare system, according to his manifesto, which he's trying to get suppressed this week. Now, he's in court for the second week of a suppression hearing in New York State Supreme Court to determine whether evidence in his backpack and some of his statements to police should be thrown out because of alleged violations of his constitutional rights during his arrest last year at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. Now, the police released a lot of body cam footage this week. Let's watch. Now, let's listen.
What's your name?
Mark.
What is it?
Mark.
Mark?
Yes, sir.
Mark what?
Rosario.
Rosario? Someone called. I thought you were...
Mark Rosario. That was the name on the fake ID. And here's Mangione on a trip to Thailand. Now, the photo probably was taken by two friends he met there. Paul and Max, both from Germany. Now, apparently they traveled together throughout Asia. In Thailand, he visited an expensive gun range. Now, his family lost touch with him. Then he surfaced in the USA and murdered Brian Thompson. Now, Mangione had animus toward the health system, maybe because of his back condition, but medical science has limits. Everybody understands that. Mangione is an Ivy League grad, so he understood. Now, he murdered a health insurance executive not because Mangione is a crusader, in my view, but because he's a dangerous psychopath. Okay, that is my view of this defendant. Now, here's the defense team. They seem rather pleased with themselves. Apparently, their strategy is to try to portray the defendant as sympathetic. Now, he wanted to strike a blow against the establishment, misguided as that was, but he's insane, so what else could he do, etc., etc. Now, I don't think the jury will go for it. Jeffrey Dahmer, for instance, pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, but the jury found him to be legally sane at the time of the murders. Let's recall he dismembered his victims and ate them, okay? Literally a cannibal, yet Dahmer was found to be legally sane. And in my view, so will Mangione. He hasn't filed a notice of insanity defense, but I believe he will because of this. Fist pump, okay? Looks like a man who wants to live, and misguided as it may be, he believes that he will. Now, the federal charges allow for the death penalty, so his only chance to avoid a death sentence is to prove he was legally insane, which, as I've said in my previous video regarding the first week of the suppression hearing, I don't think he can do. Now, the defense wants to examine about 27 witnesses, a huge number for a suppression hearing, so it might go on for weeks. The defendant is super wealthy with a giant following on social media. The murder victim, in contrast, now he's a wealthy man. He was a wealthy man as well, Brian Thompson, but he was completely unknown as an individual to all of his haters. He was hated because of the job he had, healthcare CEO. Now, the money for Mangione's legal defense is pouring in from a bunch of lovesick ladies and gentlemen all over the internet to the tune of $1 million and counting, small dollar contributions. Last week, his defense team was going through just 2 witnesses per day. That's a slow pace. The judge told them to speed it up. Now, this week, additional items of evidence were discussed, including a folding knife he had in his pocket. Now, he volunteered the knife because the initial pat-down of his outer clothing didn't find the weapon. They didn't find the gun or silencer during the initial search of the backpack either. Now, what that indicates is the initial searches were quick and relatively non-intrusive, intended just to clear the defendant and the backpack of weapons that could be used to attack officers and to prevent destruction of evidence. Now, the Fourth Amendment says people must be free from unreasonable searches and seizures, and to pat down and search for weapons that could harm officers and to prevent destruction of evidence is reasonable. There's also a legal doctrine called inevitable discovery, which prevents exclusion of evidence that may have been seized in violation of the Fourth Amendment, because often evidence is found during an inventory search, for example. Every police department inventories the defendant's belongings pursuant to a written policy. Now, if the evidence would have been found during that process, the evidence comes back in because there's no Fourth Amendment violation with that type of search. So I don't see the evidence getting thrown out under these circumstances. Now, the defense raised an issue about Miranda warnings as well, which I'll discuss in an upcoming video. Now, additional items they found in the backpack. A bus ticket from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh. He gave his name as Sam Dawson. List of things to do for his escape, meaning he planned to live after killing Brian Thompson. Now, that's an entitlement mentality. He's special and above the rules. The to-do list tells us a lot. It says, Best Buy USB 256. That's a USB drive. What was he going to do with that? The to-do list also says a light source, digital camera, micro SD. So with those items, he was planning to record himself, not just on a cell phone, but with a digital camera. That's a high-quality cinematic image. That's why he needed the light source. The USB drive, 256 gig, was probably to upload a video he would make of himself to social media. Now that would be my guess. Now let's look at his note cards. This one says, buy black shoes, white stripe 2 distinctive, change hat, shoes, pluck eyebrows, his eyebrows are very distinctive, hand-drawn map of Pittsburgh. He had the bus ticket to Pittsburgh, let's recall. Let's go to another note card. Okay, hand-drawn map of the Midwest. Check for red eyes out of Steel City. That's Pittsburgh again. Going to Columbus or Cincinnati, according to the map and his handwriting. He says, ideally to Columbus or Cincinnati, get off early, keep momentum, FBI slower overnight. Check reports for current situation. So this is an escape plan. He had $2,000 in foreign currency on him from the nations of Thailand, India, and Japan, and he had 10,000 US dollars. So if he was planning to leave the country again, that would have been hopeless because of extradition. Now, when a defendant does such a heinous murder, and every murder is heinous, but this one obviously was the work of a dangerous psychopath. Now, he can tell himself he's returning to Thailand or wherever. There was never any place on earth for this defendant to hide. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, leave a like and don't forget to subscribe.